What's up guys, it's your boy Kevin, aka KP, and I'm here with the Samsung Galaxy Note 8. I've had this phone now for about 2 weeks, and I've run across a bunch of people across the internet who have so many different opinions about this phone. So I wanted to make my own video telling you why this phone gets on my nerves. But before we do any of that, let me tell you a little bit about this phone. The Samsung Galaxy Note 8, Samsung's follow-up to the Note 7 from last year, is their biggest and quoted best device on the market today. It features one of the latest Snapdragon processors, 6 GB of RAM, which is insane because that's almost as much as most laptops nowadays. It also features a 6.3-inch Super AMOLED screen, which is gorgeous. This screen is actually brighter and better than the SA Plus, which came out just earlier this year. In fact, benchmarks and tests have shown that this might be the brightest screen on the market. It features a 3300 milliamp hour battery, which I'll tell you a little bit more about later, and of course the coveted S Pen. My experience with this phone so far has been awesome. But let me tell you a little bit why I say that this phone gets on my nerves. I didn't really intend for this to be clickbait, but I wanted to let you know that this phone gets on my nerves for both good and bad reasons. But let me get to the bad reasons first. First of all, this phone is expensive. And I can't really argue about that because most of these phones that are coming out now are reaching that $900 to $1,000 range. The problem with that is that this phone has many of the same features that cheaper models have. Phones that have been coming out for about $500 or $600 have a lot of the same features as this phone. They just don't have the same name brand clout that Samsung has. The next thing that gets on my nerves about this phone is the battery size, 3300 milliamp hours. This is the Galaxy Note 8. This is the SA Plus. The SA Plus, which is supposed to be its little brother, has a larger battery. Now the reason why that battery is smaller is to make room for the S Pen, which makes sense, but at the same time this is a huge manufacturer, and I believe that with a little bit more time they could have actually come out with a larger capacity battery that was smaller, but I understand they didn't want to take any chances after the fiasco that happened with the Note 7. Another thing that I don't really care a whole lot for is TouchWiz, which isn't TouchWiz anymore, it's Samsung Experience, but it's still a little bit laggy. Samsung Experience is Samsung's own user interface that kind of covers up a lot of the things that you see that will be on a normal Android phone that runs nothing but stock Android software on it. It kind of personalizes and customizes this phone. Now, I think that because it has 6 GB of RAM, that extra memory is giving it a little bit more processing power, so it's not as slow as it was on the SA Plus. It's different things you can notice as you're going about using the phone on a day-to-day basis that might be a little bit laggy, but it's not as bad. I just don't like it as much as I could possibly like it if it were just stock Android. Now the last thing that gets on my nerves is this. This fingerprint reader is somewhat annoying. I don't have small hands, I don't have big hands. I think I have normal sized hands. And when I go to unlock my phone, sometimes it's a bit of a stretch to go all the way up here and inside the phone back down in my hand. Now we do have things like facial recognition as well as iris detection. I use iris detection, the iris sensors as well, to unlock it using just my eyes. So that does make things a little bit easier, but I'm so used to being able to unlock things with just my fingerprint, and sometimes having to reach all the way up here can be a little bit annoying. Now the last thing that gets on my nerves is this Bixby button. It's annoying. It gets in my way. Period, point blank. Do I use Bixby? I actually do sometimes. Since they've come up with some updates, I've actually enjoyed using it. I like using Bixby Voice. I don't use it as frequently as I use Google's Assistant, but I have found use for it in waking the phone up, setting alarms, doing different things. Even while I'm driving, I can command the phone to send a text message or do whatever it is that I wanted to do. And I found it to be rather helpful. The only trouble that I have with the Bixby Voice is that every now and then she wants to pop up in the middle of phone calls. She might want to pop up just at random times, and I'm sitting there like, who in the world invited you to this conversation? Now those are things that get on my nerves about this phone for all of the bad reasons. But this phone also gets on my nerves for good reasons. Now I'll tell you what I mean by that. I'm just saying that there's certain features about this phone that are so good to me that it makes me annoyed almost, because it almost makes me feel like I have to have this phone. 6.3-inch Super AMOLED screen that's on this phone is ridiculous. the way that it wraps around the sides gives you that more immersive look and everything, which I can or cannot do without. I mean, I think it looks pretty dope. I think it's pretty cool. It actually feels better in my hand. But one of the things that I love about it is that it does support HDR video. So HDR is newer technology that allows you to bring in more colors into videos, and YouTube and Netflix both support HDR on this phone. So if you haven't experienced HDR video yet on this phone, you're missing out. I recommend that you put the phone into performance mode, then head over to Netflix or go into YouTube, search for some HDR content and be amazed. I mean, it's like candy for your eyes. It's crazy. For somebody like me who's a graphic designer and a web designer, I like to be able to edit and draw and sketch while I'm on the go. I can do it on my tablet, but having something that's right in my pocket that can translate those designs directly to my computer using Adobe software is phenomenal to me. Sure, I love using pen and paper. It's nothing like using pen and paper, but I just enjoy being able to do something like that on my phone. The third thing that I love about this phone is this camera. Having dual lenses on this phone gives us the ability to simulate the bokeh or the blur effect that you see when you're taking a picture with a more high-end camera. So because of live focus, which is very similar to iPhone's portrait mode, or if you go all the way back to Samsung's selective focus mode, which came out years ago, no shade to Apple, you can capture dope depth effect looking images with this phone. Not only is live focus good for capturing those images to make it look like you have that depth effect, you can actually adjust the amount of blur that the background has, and it also captures the original image all at the same time, which is pretty dope. Although I do find it to be somewhat oversaturated, I don't find it to be overexposed, and it does well at night as well as in highly lit situations like indirect sunlight. Not only that, I enjoy the fact that these cameras both have image stabilization, which means that as you're moving, the lenses inside the camera are actually floating a little bit so that you don't get that same juddery looking image that you can get with older phones that don't have optical image stabilization. So all in all, this phone gets on my nerves for several different reasons. Ultimately, it gets on my nerves in a good way. It makes me want to use the phone. It makes me not want to put it down sometimes. It makes me want to use the features that are on the phone. Even though this phone is rather expensive, it does at least make me feel a little bit better knowing that I got a lot of features that I can use on this phone. Well, anyway, guys, this is about wraps up my video. Let me know if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, comments. Leave them down below. If you like this video, smash that like button. If you didn't like it, you know what to do. And if you want to see more content, hit that subscribe button. Anyways, your boy KP Squared. I'm out. Peace.